welcome to Journey Through the Innerverse. I am really happy to be here live. Yes, we're live this week. I'm so excited. Last week we had a bit of a hiccup. We had some technical issues. And so this week, obviously, we're not having that. I'm going to blame Mercury retrograde on that one. It was like right at the tail end. And I was like, really, Mercury, you're going to do this to me? But I'm just kidding. On that note, Alexis, how are you feeling today?
Good. And honestly, Mercury retrograde definitely played its role. And I know there's a bunch of other ones in retrograde too, but like one of the things I noticed randomly from the time Mercury went retrograde till it ended and went direct was a lot of people's animals got sick or died. Like
Really?
that was just something that I picked up on this whole I can't at least seven people I know, their animals were acting funky. They had to go to the vet. Some of them spontaneously passed away. Some of them are having weird, like unanswerable health issues. It's been odd, but today I feel very good, and I am excited to talk about the topic. How are you today?
Yeah, I feel really good. Some parts of me still feel a little of the full moon frenzy energy that I was feeling as I'm like kind of like fidgeting with my hands right now, trying to fix my pants. And it's like, yeah, I'm feeling this restless energy. And honestly, I'm sure it's probably me. I'm sure it's probably more than just the full moon because the full moon has gone and passed. The moon's not in Aquarius anymore. I believe the moon's in Aries. So, um, yeah, I don't know. There's just so much energy around me, and it's been hard to focus, to ground myself. And yeah, so it's been a journey, and I do feel that I have a bit of like I understand a bit of the message for me with all of this. And yeah, I'm letting it all integrate. But other than that, I'm doing really well. And like I said, I'm really excited for this chat today. So, for those of you watching, I know you know what this chat is about as you clicked on it, but I'm just going to share that we're going to be talking about alchemizing dreams into art. And I'm really excited because I have an actual artist that's my co host. She's amazing. Her art is brilliant, inspiring, just so magical, and I love it. Like it every time I look at your art, like it unlocks something. It's just, and every time you create the images for the podcast, I'm just like, oh my god, this is so cool. I love it. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic. And so before we get into the details of what we're going to discuss, or like the meat of the conversation, I do want to share the cosmic climate. As I mentioned, we're already out of the full moon energy, and Mercury has ended its retrograde cycle. Yeah, so happy about that. And yeah, so we're pretty much moving forward in terms of Mercury's, guidance or teachings, or just the way Mercury flows and how we interact with that. And we're going to be in Mercury's shadow period, like post shadow period, for about a week and a half. And so we want to take this time to just like integrate, what we experience, reflect on that, just feel what comes up. And so, maybe this frenzy type feeling that I'm experiencing, that happened at the end of Mercury retrograde. And so, and it's in a very prominent part of my chart. It's in the 10th house. So
Yeah,
I'm letting it all integrate. I'm doing my best not to overthink everything, which is definitely like a Mercury retrograde experience. That
100%.
being overthinking. But yeah, so that's pretty much like the main vibe for this week. I mean, there's other things going on, and I really do apologize. I have been feeling distant from, even looking at the moon on its day-to-day transits in reference to my dream space, and in reference to just like what's happening in general with the astrological transits. I don't know, there's something going on with me. So I know that there's more going on out there in the dreaming realm and the moon, but right now I'm in a liminal space, so bear with me.
I I'm right there with you. I mean, if there's anything Mercury retrograde this time around taught me is that I am in that cocoon stage where I'm overthinking everything and I'm growing, but I'm not seeing my fullest potential, even though it's there. Like I'm not seeing it. And I'm learning that I have to keep reminding myself that it's there. And even just learning about, the what we're going to talk about today and reflecting on my life and how far I've come up until this point, it's really helping me to recognize that this is a process and I'm definitely more capable than I give myself credit for. And I think that's something that a lot of us do. We just fall into this habit of seeing ourselves on a lower level than we actually are, seeing our capabilities at a lower level. And I've been very disconnected with myself because of it. I know that my dream space hasn't been as active, or I haven't been holding on to as many dreams as I'd like to. I've not been connected to myself as spiritually as I would like to. And it almost feels like there is a slight emptiness. And I feel like what I've learned from this is that I'm integrating back to myself, but I had to have this separation to see it. And the way that I'm viewing existence right now and myself in it is changing.
Yeah, that's true. I relate to that. And, when I'm thinking about this too and thinking about the transits and just everything that's happening and just the restless energy, I know the biggest lesson is to be present, to be in the now. Like, it doesn't matter if tomorrow's a full moon or yesterday was like the peak of Mercury retrograde cycle or something. Like, that's important. And we'll have our like experience in that moment, but just be in the moment is what I'm telling myself. So, right
Absolutely.
now, my restless energy is present because I don't really have anything pending. I already have my class. Like, I've already done like the circle and everything that I needed to do, where I was busy, busy, busy for the past couple of weeks. And I was restless in that. And now I'm like, I don't have anything to do, and I have tons of things to do. But I think when it's like you don't have anything pressing, like a deadline, and then you have all these different things to do, it's like, well, what do I pick? And you get the procrastination, whatever experience. And so I'm just
Absolutely.
telling myself, just do whatever I feel like, just be in the flow, be in the moment, be in the flow. So
Absolutely.
that's where we are right now.
And to backpack off of that too, like the that restlessness and not kind of knowing what direction to throw it in. I find that when it comes to doing things, if there's a class or other people are relying on me, I can get the stuff taken care of. But when it's just my own stuff,
Yeah.
it can be very hard to ground myself and do it for me.
Mhm.
And it makes me kind of go back to that, thought process of like, well, why is it so easy for me to show up for other people and not quite as easy for me to show up for myself?
Mhm. That's a whole nother line of thought there that, I can relate to as well.
Yeah, it's been a lot. I mean, even the full moon, like what it was Saturday, I can't even tell you. I felt like I was hit by a bus. I slept the whole day, like the whole day. I could not get up. I could not get out of my entire body was weak. My brain wasn't functioning. I wasn't dreaming throughout that entire day of sleep. It was definitely a weird full
Yeah.
moon.
That was a weird, weird portal. Well, I didn't tell you this, but and I'm not going to go deep into it, but Monday I had kind of a similar experience, but I don't like to nap for specific reasons. One, mainly because of my child, and I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't rest deeply anyways. But I every time I lay down, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna lay down and rest my eyes. Like, in between doing things, I'm like, I'm gonna lay down, rest my, and I was like out, like I fell asleep, like I like couldn't, every time I laid down, I was out. And I mean, it wouldn't last long because naturally it's like I woke myself out of it because I'm like, I can't nap right now. And so that's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure we'll talk about sleep and the psyche and all of that.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so if you've been feeling this energy, restlessness, or just like the very opposite where you like crash out, like, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. So, speaking of sleeping and dreaming and recording and things, we have one single announcement, and I'm sure you probably can guess what that is.
So Urania and I both, for a while now, have been working with a developing app called Dreamigos. It is an app where you can record your dreams in a variety of different ways, keep them private for yourself, or share them to our dream line where, experts like Urania and I can come on and give interpretation and guidance. It's a fantastic app. The community is great and it's just growing and getting better. You can find this app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And one of the things that I love about it is if you download that and sign up today, then you will be able to access our free monthly dream circle. And it's a great time. You have a big group of people coming together, talking about a variety of different topics around dreaming and dream work. You can share your dreams and get interpretation live and, just expand your understanding and learn and grow. So if you haven't downloaded it yet today, go and do that. You will not regret it.
Um, Alrighty. So before we get into the meat of the topic, I know I keep saying that, but there's things we want to share. This discussion is primarily anchored around Carl's, or at least it was inspired by Carl Jung's perspective in reference to dreams and art and how that's related and how art, expressing your dreams through art, can be incredibly beneficial. And we just had our previous episode in which we talked about Carl Jung, his works, and his life and his perspective around dreams. And so, just as a refresher, Carl Jung was born in 1875.
Ooh.
He was known to be a Swiss psychiatrist and an author. And he was also noted as being an outstanding influence in the development of the theory and practice of analytical psychiatry, dream interpretation, synchronicity, personality types, the individuation process, and the personal and collective unconsciousness. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the individuation process, as well as how, again, as I mentioned, how Carl Jung is his perspective on art and how that is very beneficial with the individuation process and expressing your dreams and peeling back the layers of your dreams.
Yeah, and just to kind of discuss a little bit about, Carl Jung, when you said, his date of birth being 1875, it just kind of blows my mind because he had such a progressive way of thinking about the psyche, the mind, humans in existence. And, you know, a lot of the reason why he didn't really become too popular while he was still alive was because of these views. And now we're eating them up. Like, I mean, the more I learn about his ideas and his works and, you know, that growth and it just it makes me understand myself and existence so much more than I did before. But let's go right into it. So, Carl Jung's individuation process was the path to an optimal personal development for an individual. So, one of the quotes that he shares is the aim of individuation is nothing less than to divest the self of the false wrappings of the persona on the one hand, and the suggestive power of the primordial images on the other. So basically, this is stripping away the collective, which is what you were raised by, like how your parents raised you, and the thoughts and ideas and programming that kind of came with how you were raised, and the cultural norms, the society you were brought in, stripping those away so you can become a unique whole individual. So what you strip away in regards to this is your social mask or false identity. This is what the ego created for itself in the course of early development. So how you are in the world, how you show yourself in the world, how you think and show yourself in the world based on how you were raised and, the cultural norms. But also the unconscious influences of the archetypes. So when talking about this, I want to look at Carl Jung's model of the psyche because it's very important in regards to the process of individuation. One sec.
Yeah, and you want me to share that, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So we're gonna bring up the model on the screen just so you have an idea of what you're looking at, how Jung put it together.
Yeah, so you want to tune into the video version if you can, if you're interested. You also don't have
Yes.
to. But this is Jung's model of the psyche that we're
Yes,
sharing.
and if you are just listening, if you just type into Google Carl Jung's model of the psyche, it'll come up and you'll get an understanding of what we're talking about visually at least. So, the purpose of individuation process is to increase consciousness. So this helps with the integration of the conscious and the unconscious. It brings to the surface what we don't know about ourselves to help guide us to wholeness in the psyche. So when looking at the model of the psyche from Carl Jung's perspective, this is important because this is how he perceived the self or like us as a whole. So there's the ego. The ego is one's self, sense of self or identity. Then we have the persona. So this is one's social mask. So this is how you develop yourself to fit in with society, essentially. Then you have the self, the organizing principle within the psyche, the shadow, the disowned self. So everything you reject. The anima and animus. This is the feminine and the masculine aspects of the opposite sex or gender. So for a woman, it would be the masculine aspects of the self coming through, and for the man, it would be the feminine aspects coming through. Then we have the personal unconscious. This is the collection of experiences within the individual. So what's stored from your experiences. The collective unconscious. This is the collection of universal images and patterns within the collective psyche. And the conventional world, so the physical world we actually interact with on a conscious level. So why this is important is because Carl Jung's individuation process is broken down into 3 stages. So the shadow is the first stage, the anima animus is the second stage, and the third stage is accessing the self or the whole. So when we look at the first stage, this is the aspect of integrating the aspects of ourselves that we disowned or reject, aspects of ourselves that are hard to face, hard to acknowledge. Think about like the most embarrassing thing that you've ever done and how you try to stuff it away and never acknowledge it. So the shadow archetype represents all personal traits we have ignored, denied, or cut off from ourselves. So integrating that shadow into yourself, so integrating the light and the shadow, is the first stage of that individuation process because you're allowing yourself to acknowledge who you are as a person, good and bad. So the next stage is the anima or animus, which is integrating the like feminine or masculine aspects of yourself into your personality. So, for example, if you look at the way society, and not all societies, not all cultures, because everywhere you are is different. But say American society, the woman has a role and the man has a role. But that's not reality. That's just the social construct. So there's aspects of ourselves that we reject because of the fact that it's, more masculine or more feminine. So the next stage is integrating those 2 things. And then the self, of course. This is essentially the archetype of wholeness and self transcendence. So this is where you have balance within yourself, creating this whole. Now, why this is important is because dreaming and creating art are both aspects of, not aspects, but both dreaming and creating art are ways for you to work through these stages to become whole. So, dreaming and creating art provide access to the unconscious mind and provide symbolic expression. Dreams are primarily a way for the unconscious to communicate with the conscious mind. So there's no filtration system. What you're dreaming, it doesn't run through, what you would have things run through when you're conscious. And creating art is a bridge between your inner symbols and outer expression. So art and dreams bypass the rational mind and access symbolic and archetypal material to help you to understand yourself as a whole. Um, it helps, especially with art. Art helps externalize the inner conflicts and emotions, making them easier to process and integrate. And this is all working towards that individuation process in the journey to becoming whole. So I want to just share a quote by Jung. Art is a kind of innate drive that seizes a human being and makes them an instrument. The artist is not a person endowed with free will, but one who allows art to realize its purpose through them. And I just find that so beautiful. I mean, even just the idea of creation, like creating some nothing to into something, bringing creation into the world. And when we look at Jung's work, he really, uh, I mean, the colors, the symbols, the archetypes, all of the things that he has embedded within his art is um a manifestation of his self, of his soul, and all of everything he was processing and moving through and dreaming about. And you know we're talking about this because creating art within your dream work and in your dream journal can help add another layer of understanding of the self.
Hmm.
I hope
And
that wasn't
especially,
too like.
no, that was great. And kind of just, so one of the ways that I looked at it, individuation, or just translating all that through my own words, I guess. And I don't know if I'm correct, but basically is individuation essentially is the process of kind of separating yourself from the conditioning of, your culture, your early childhood, and yeah, all of that conditioning that's not basically your authentic self. Like, it's like the individuation process is coming into your own, is the act of or experience of coming into your authentic self, your divine expression, and connecting more with, even like when I think about how Carl Jung will, talk about like the myth, how we all, like, life is a myth, or maybe like we all have our own myth, our own story, which that myth is very, it's close to nature, it's close to truth, um and like your spiritual essence. So it's like we're separating from the conditioning and becoming more of our mythical selves, or like our, yeah, so that's, is that kind of,
Yeah, absolutely. That
okay.
was a fantastic that yeah, that was completely
Okay.
understanding of what I just talked about. And though I something I really love about Jung's perspective in this is that he really recognizes how beautiful each unique person is and all of their personality, their true personality traits and characteristics and everything they experience on an individual whole. And like it's so important to allow yourself to break away from these constraints that you've been raised in and move through society in. I mean, just looking at myself as my own experience, my own life, and how art and dreaming has both played a huge role in the way that I move through existence. When I was a kid, I wasn't able to communicate verbally what I was feeling. You know, I'm not going to say that a lot of like I'm sure a lot of people's parents didn't teach emotional and mental communication in a healthy way. Um, and so what showed up at a young age was both access to the dream space and art, and not being able to communicate how I'm feeling, and also having a variety of learning disabilities that held me back in school. I didn't really fit in with society or my home life at all. So acknowledging how the dreaming and art has been basically my guides rather than society and my parents, where I was rejected from both. It's very interesting to see the process of it all. And I was telling Urania, we were listening to this Jungian Life, this episode of this Jungian Life, and one of the speakers they had on was talking about this kid who, he knew something was wrong within him, but he didn't know what. And he worked with this Jungian analyst and artist, Mark Dean, creating art to help get to the different layers of the self, and then recognizing that what was wrong was actually physical. It was a autoimmune disease, not actually something in his brain. And the whole process of understanding himself to get to understanding what was truly wrong with him, I was getting emotional because it just reminded me of my own process through art and understanding myself. So I'm so, I have such a strong connection and love for this topic that we're talking about right now. So I had to bring that up.
Yeah, well, I mean, art is really powerful, and one of the perspectives of Jung as well, what is that working with dreams and art can, help you reach to a deeper level of the psyche, which makes sense because, the psyche or our dreams essentially communicates with us through symbols, through imagery. And so, Alexis and I both have said many times here on the podcast how we have those experiences where it's like the dream, like parts of the dream you just can't translate into words, like you might
Yeah,
want to so badly, but it's just there. And I had that moment literally today. I'm like, I don't even know how to put some of it into words, but but I see it, I feel it. So you can see it, you can feel it, so the emotions, the imagery is very strong. And so being able to translate that emotion that you felt into art or the scene or an object, just to put something down, will bridge that gap, and it'll help you connect even more deeply to your psyche and to your inner being. And furthermore, there was a technique I believe was also mentioned on this podcast episode, like the scribble method or something of that nature. And I mean, you could do this in dreams, like specifically if there's an emotion in the dream, or like you even can't like you can't really, like for me, I'm not artistically inclined, like it's not a gift of mine. And so this, I was like, okay, I can connect with the image, connect with the emotion, and just start to just do whatever, like scribble. Like in this case, the scribble method was literally just scribbling lines, and then stop. Like once you have a moment, once you're done, right? Take a moment to reflect on it, and like, what do you see? What does that speak to you? Like sometimes you don't even know the emotion. You're just in the automatic flow of scribbling or drawing, and then you step away from it, and it's like, well, how does that feel? Or how does it make you feel, looking at it? And that emotion will come up, and then that can peel back another layer. And so I'm really just completely inspired, and I see like the value. There's so much value in, the ability to just try to just draw something. You don't have to be, an amazing artist. You could just do stick figures, which
absolutely.
or abstract. I like more of the abstract art. That's like what I can do. And the colors, I think one of my favorite, I guess, I don't know if the right term is medium or basically tool. Like I love pastels because I love the different colors. I love the texture of it. I love how it's like, I always like chalk. I don't know. Like, I think, one of the things that really got me into astrology essentially was I first started with drawing the symbols, like drawing the glyphs over and over again. Like I have notebooks where I'm just drawing the glyphs, and then that unlocks something. Looking at the birth chart and like drawing my birth chart and drawing the symbols. And then I wanted to go deeper. And I feel just, and I tell people this all the time, like when you look at your actual birth chart, even if you don't understand what it means, just look at it And that imagery in itself, you know, the symbols will unlock something for you. And when you draw it or draw your own birth chart, that will unlock something for you. And so, from that perspective, even this makes so much sense that being able to just translate your dream through art and get that, even to get it out of you and in front of you, is, I mean, that's an incredible transformation, just experience, transformational experience, just the process of doing it, even if you don't really know what you're doing or know what it's going to mean for you, that whole experience is like so therapeutic.
And it doesn't, like you said, you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be excelling in the arts. You know, something that I think is really important that people don't really talk about too much is like collaging. You know, collaging within your dream journal to just get an idea of what it is you were experiencing and expand the layers of process and understanding. You don't have to do the art. You just cut out pieces, colors, symbols, you know, whatever you feel like you saw, you can translate that into a collage and you don't even have to do any drawing. You can, like, you know, you said we use colors. If the majority of your dream was blue, and one of the significant signs that came out to you was the moon, you can scribble the page or paint the page blue and do a moon. Whatever, you know, phase it was in, just do that moon. And that is a way for you to have a visual representation of what you're experiencing within the unconscious. It's just so beautiful how you can bring that to light and what it does. I mean, even, you know, when you're conscious and doing art, I have pieces of art from years ago. And when I was doing the art, I wasn't sitting there like, oh, this is a representation of this, and this means this, and this shows how I was feeling in this way. However, I will look at that piece now and reflect on where I was in my life then, and I will say, oh, yeah, so this represents an aspect of myself that feels closed up. This represents an aspect of myself that I was afraid of. This is an aspect of myself where I can see the door opening and a way out of whatever I was experiencing. But at that moment, I wasn't aware that this image, this creation meant anything at all. And I think that's really important, especially with dream work too, because we always say, you know, like, keep a dream journal because you're going to look at dreams from 5 years ago and have a new understanding of what that dream means now. It's the same with visuals. You're going to see things you didn't see before. You're going to be able to be more open and your perspective is going to widen. And it's going to be so important for your journey to wholeness, to accepting yourself for who you are, understanding the aspects of yourself you don't know, integrating the good, the bad, rejecting what you don't, you know, want to conform to, and really sinking into that unique individual experience of who you are. Because at the end of the day, we're all experiencing our own personal, like, lives. Like, none of us are the same. None of us, we can have similar experiences, but those experiences in themselves are completely different from the next. Even having siblings, your experience with your parents are completely different than the experience your siblings will have with your parents. It's different people, different times of their lives. So it's really interesting to kind of keep a collection of these, you know, unconscious experiences in the waking realm, a tangible thing for you to go back to and be able to look upon so you can just continue to grow and understand yourself.
Yeah, and you know, I love that you bring this up as far as not really like when you're doing the art, when you're creating, you're not really thinking. You're not in that left or no, the right left part of the brain, you know, the analytical, whichever side is which. um, and that was one of the things that Carl Jung suggested too, was that just automatically, like once you create your art, your piece, whatever it is, then like try automatic writing about your dream symbol, or having a conversation, or creating essentially a story of like this whatever it is that you wrote, right? So then, but that's also like, it's a little bit of, it could be a little bit of the logical mind, but also it's still very creative, and you're opening up dialogue, and you're, I think the point of it is, not thinking about it and just channeling in, like seeing, like as you're looking at this piece, as you're looking at, say, if you, draw a person or a figure that was in your dreams, what's the story behind this figure? Or what's the emotion? What are you getting? Or just whatever comes to mind, just free writing that, and then going from there, because that's going to give you another layer of meaning and interpretation. And so it's such a profound ability and such a profound practice to be able to just even skip the, I mean, you can always write your dream too, but like to be able to just have like a visual aspect of your dream is incredible, and so beneficial on many levels.
Absolutely. And it's one of the only ways that you can really, if you choose to show the world, you know, show people a tangible expression of your unconscious and what you see inside your head.
So speaking of that, it's interesting because, so Carl Jung, if you all didn't know, he was actually an artist. Like he was a painter, and he was incredible. We're going to share his art pieces, only a couple here. And so again, if you are not tuning into the video version, we highly encourage it. You can, if you're listening on Spotify, there's an option to watch the video version on Spotify, but you can also, check it out on YouTube.
And I'll post the photos when I do the
Yeah.
post on Instagram too.
Yeah. So we're going to share a couple of his art pieces, but it was interesting. Like he had no plans. Like he didn't publish this in his, like while he was, alive. And one of the things that I came across, and I don't know if this was true or not, but he was like, he didn't want to be considered an artist. He didn't want to, essentially what I'm gathering from that is that the main focus of his work to be that, to take attention away from it. And I see why, because I mean, he was good. Oh my goodness. I was totally blown away when I started looking at his art. You can find it in the Red Book. So basically, this book essentially was locked away in a Swiss bank vault, and by his family, and his family had no intentions. They literally sat on it for 50 years. It took 3 years for, I don't remember his name, but for a person to basically convince them to share this with the world. I don't know what he said, and he was definitely devoted. They agreed to, release it. I think his grandson, helped to translate it. And yeah, so, and it's in, the original copy, I believe, is in a museum here in, New York City. And so yeah, but okay, I'm
It's
gonna,
in New York City.
yeah,
We should take a trip
yeah,
and
we
we
should
should
check
check it out.
to make sure it didn't move. But yeah, no, I saw that and I thought about that too. I was like, yeah. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let me just get this ready. But yeah, so he was in this, the Red Book essentially is his personal, it's his personal works. Like it was a series of journals basically from, oh shoot, I should have this already up and ready to go. But sorry, friends.
Take your time.
So yeah, it was his personal, it was his dream vision journal, basically, along with many other writings, from 1913 to 1930. And basically, it was, the work that influenced his, or the foundational work for his perspective on the unconscious and everything that we have been learning. Now, this was his personal practice and his personal experience, with the individuation process. And so, I mean, all right, let me get this up here because I
And
can't.
honestly, knowing Carl Jung and listening to his interviews and how, like, one of the things that he, in that three-part documentary we listened to, you know, people were trying to get a popularized, like a more, how do I say this? Like, They wanted him to create a book that was easier for the general public to basically understand. And one of his reasons for not wanting to do it was that he wasn't aiming to be popular. He didn't really want that to be an aspect of his work. Um, and I can see how kind of rejecting publicizing his art played a role in that. It's a tool.
Yeah. And I mean, Alexis, you told me many times it's kind of a process, or, I mean, it's a thing to be able to share your art
Mm-hmm.
with people. Like, maybe obviously not for every artist, because there are artists that do enjoy. I'm not saying you wouldn't enjoy it, but it might not be that big of a thing. But no, I've heard you say like it's very private, it's very personal, especially I can see with Jung how it would be very personal because even of his perspective of what this means. And so by looking at his art, you're getting a sense of his own psyche, his own inner world, and it's very raw and authentic. And I actually have the book in my Amazon cart, and they have, basically it's not the original and not the edition that came out right after they translate everything, because I think that was, they were saying it was like $200, but this is like a cheaper version. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's like there's been some other edits and translated by different folks. So I think I saw it on Amazon, it was like $36, but
Yeah.
it's
I'm going to get one
absolutely worth
too.
it. Yeah, I'm gonna get it, it's in there. So when we read through that, we'll definitely be having an episode talking about the Red Book and showing more of this art. So we don't really know much, honestly, about the story behind the art. We're just showing you what stood out to us, and we're going to share our perspective on it. So if you're watching live, or you're listening to the replay, feel free to share your perspective and what pulls you in with these art pieces. So this art piece, this really drew me in because this spoke to me as it's very Egyptian, even though the style is not Egyptian. The image and symbolism in itself feels very Egyptian to me. And what I'm really drawn to is this golden disc on a boat. And in ancient Egyptian mythology, this essentially depicts the journey of Ra, Ra's daily journey, in which he, is out during the day. Basically, he has his life and he's out, and then he dies and goes and journeys through the underworld and then is reborn again in its day, right? So it's basically the story behind day and night, or the journey of the sun. And the reason why, like, that in itself stood out to me, but the reason why this really stood out to me and I was blown away when I came across this was that I had a dream a couple years ago, and this was around the time where I had really felt the profound transformation of the dream world. And so I was having really amazing dreams, and I believe I was preparing for Dream Circle. um and so I had a dream, and the dream in itself was very archetypal because, like, primarily the theme of the dream was the color black.
Mm-hmm.
There was the black heart emoji, and it was just kind of like symbols that would come in throughout the dream. There was really no structure of the dream. And sometimes I think about it, I'm like, did I really see a black heart emoji, or did that just, like, for whatever reason I felt it, right? But that black heart emoji is one of my most used favorite emojis, especially during that time. Then I got the essence of the night sky. There was also a black cat. So I was feeling Bassett energy in my own cat Wednesday. And then this part of the dream, like, as the dream went on, I was in bed with a friend of mine, and it was nighttime, and I happened to look out of the window and I saw, like, it was like a full moon, but then it came in this image of a boat. But the boat, I feel like the boat wasn't really there. So this is be a perfect one to draw, actually. But the boat was it was like the silhouette of the boat, and it was like this sun disk, but then I like it would come back in between, or it would go back and forth between the sun and the full moon. and it was moving basically, or I had the impression that was moving across the sky in the black, like I could see waves, but it was the black
Wow.
sky. So when I saw this, I was like, what? And it's interesting because I'm looking at the fish underneath, and that to me feels like the tumultuous nature of the underworld
Hmm.
and the depths even of the psyche.
Yeah.
And so there's, yeah, I love this. And this was like probably one of the first pieces I saw when I was looking for his work or reading through one of the articles you shared. And I was like, what? So yeah, it absolutely my favorite, one of the
That
favorite.
the correlation of the dream, the parallels of the dream is so beautiful, and it brings us back to that archetypal, like or the collective archetypal aspects of, mythos and our connection to it. And there's something so beautiful about, because in your dream it felt a little more peaceful. I could be wrong, but
No, it was definitely
it,
peaceful.
it felt it seemed like you felt very at peace with maybe death or the shadow aspect of life. And the night of life was just, it was a peaceful experience for you, where like looking at this drawing, to me it feels like you said, the tumultuous aspects of the underworld or the psyche, maybe that aspect of mortality was a fear that was coming up within this dream space. um but it just, the parallels just blow me away. I'm so, just when things like that happen, it just, I get so excited. What are the chances that you would stumble upon
Right.
a
Now I'm gonna have to
dream?
go back and read the dream because I definitely
Yes,
recorded that dream.
a
And it was
hundred percent.
the thing that's just so amazing is that that dream in itself is it's the pure it was a pure archetypal dream. Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever he speaks about the archetypal energy, the spiritual energy, the unconscious like mythos, that was that dream because when I had that dream, I essentially was pretty much complete with what I was going to be talking about in the dream circle. In that specific dream circle, I was working with an Egyptian deity for each time we met. And then I wasn't going to include Basset. Like I had no plans in including Basset, which is crazy because that's one of my like main god. I mean, I have a cat, I have the statues that
Yep,
remind me that symbolize her, and so it was a dream too that was like, hey, like you're talking about dreams, like you have to include this the nocturnal energy of like the the cat, right?
hundred
And it
percent.
made sense. So it yeah, so it definitely unlocks some things. And I'm gonna go back and read that dream and I'm sure maybe next week I'll share like my reflections on that. So moving along, this one is really interesting as this was so there is actually a a part of the red book that was published, like the very end of the red book. There was a part of that that was published and it was called the Seven Sermons, I believe. I'm going to pull up my notes on this. So this was actually made public. The Seven Sermons was made public in his memoir, Dreams, Memories, and Reflections, or Memory, Dreams, and Reflections. I could be messing that up. So this was actually published, but it was the very last in the very last section of the Red Book, and essentially the seven sermons is what they have been referring to as Carl Jung's version of the revelations.
Mm-hmm.
And this, okay, so do you want to just share something on this while I pull it up? Because I want to read directly of the whole way this came into being, this art piece here.
I mean, it very much seems like a representation of existence as a whole, in including like the aspects of hell, heaven, and what would be like an in between, which is, the planets or Earth, um, and all of the in between. It's just, there's so much. It's
Well, it kind of even looks like a birth chart too.
it does look like a birth
Like
chart.
that's the first thing. That's why this was one of my favorites. It looks very alchemical. It looks like a birth chart. And the way that this whole section of his red book, the way that it came about in this art piece is crazy. So he wrote about this in Memory. So it's Memory, Dreams, and Reflections. Jung gives one account of how it's called the Septem Sermons came to be written. So the Sunday referred to below is probably Sunday, January 30th of 1916. So it began with a restlessness, but I did not know what it meant or what they wanted from me. There was an ominous atmosphere all around me. I had the strange feeling that the air was filled with ghostly entities. Then it was as if my house began to be haunted. Around 5 o'clock, let me tell you that this isn't a dream. This is not a
Oh,
dream.
this is his waking space.
Yes.
Wow.
So around 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, the front doorbell began ringing frantically, but there was no one in sight. I was sitting near the doorbell and not only heard it but saw it moving. We all simply stared at one another. The atmosphere was thick, believe me! Exclamation point. Then I knew that something had to happen. The whole house was filled as if there were a crowd present, crammed full of spirits. They were packed deep right up to the door, and the air was so thick it was scarcely possible to breathe. As for myself, I was all aquiver with the question, for God's sake, what in the world is this? Then they cried out in chorus, we have come back from Jerusalem where we found not what we sought. That is the beginning of the Septem Sermons, which is that last part of the book, the red book, and the revelation, so to speak. And this is one of the art pieces that he drew in within that energy of writing and creating this. So
Wow.
yeah, I was just taken aback by just that experience, how this came about. And it's, I've looked at I literally had to look at Carl Jung's chart a couple times, like two or three times after we talked, because I'm like, he doesn't have any Scorpio. Like,
Right?
there's so many layers. I believe he has Pisces or Cancer. I know he has Cancer. He has Mercury
I'm pulling
and
up his chart
Venus in
again because I want
Cancer.
to look
Yeah.
at it.
But I was just like, I mean, but I think, you know what? I think it's the Aquarius energy. So if he truly is an Aquarius rising sign, the Aquarius is the occult sign.
His place of fortune is in Scorpio,
Is in Scorpio? Okay.
in the
Oh,
10th
okay.
house.
And that fortune, the part of fortune or the lot of fortune, however you want to refer to, it is a marker essentially, or indicate how you will assimilate into this lifetime, into this earthly experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so that pretty much fits the bill in that case, in that very simplified, definition of the lot of fortune placement. So
And it being almost completely parallel with his moon.
true. That,
Like,
yeah. And then it's going to square his ascendant,
yep.
at least by sign. So
Wow.
yeah, I was just looking at this and I was just, oh my goodness, how does, like, this is brilliant. I understand why he was like, maybe intuitively he's like, this is too good, like
Yeah.
I can't. I have to disassociate myself. And some things you really want personal, and this is like his personal journal, his personal experience.
Yeah.
And he, created that into depth psychology, essentially, in his own practice. So we get this, but we get more of like the very like scientific aspect of it. And this is like, the other end of the spectrum of it, right? If there's two sides to the coin, this is the other side, right?
Yeah, and he explored astrology as well, you know. I don't think it was a huge part of his, like, I don't know if he was real big into it, but he definitely explored it. So it would make sense that he would include, you know, the layout of the sky, the birth chart, that aspect into his art.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Uh,
We didn't really talk much about it,
I
and I don't know the story behind it. So
I love this. There's something so beautiful about it. Almost seems like him or this dream person are kind of succumbing to this raging fire. This, like, I don't know, this, it could be a representation of the sun. It could be a representation of going outward, which it looks like it's going outward from the room, not quite inward. But again, I don't know what his mindset was. And then what looks like the fire, I don't know if it's sparks of fire or if it's blood.
Like raining fire.
Yeah, but then also like there's aspects of that first one we looked at, the boat in the water
I was
and
just gonna say
the
that.
sun or the
I just
there's
saw that.
it's like the background like archetype versus what they're possibly experiencing within their deep within themselves, and how this fiery just aspect, this whether it's like anger or passion or you know devotion or drive is just it almost feels like they're succumbing to this. And I'm not feeling the fire is necessarily something bad, but it could be.
And it's, what's really drawing me in too is this man who is in like basically prostrating. He's
Yeah.
in like a prayer type, surrender position. And so there's just so much that,
Surrendering himself to it, that's a better word than succumbing to it, I think.
yeah, like it's almost having reverence for
Yeah.
it. And it's completely overtaking the room. Yeah, because I see that fire. I feel like it's like sparks of fire dropping down, and the purple black aspect behind it is smoke. And so, I
you
mean,
know
oh,
maybe it's an integration of the anger or rage that was maybe like building within him. That integration of the shadow includes anger. That's definitely something that people reject or disown. So it could be this aspect of like surrendering to this maybe this pent up rage that maybe he's been trying to push away.
yeah. I mean, look at this. This is exactly what I was talking about as far as like I was literally just blown away. I was not expecting this.
Yeah.
I mean, the detail, like oh, I mean, I'm drawn into the little, the tiles or whatever.
Yeah.
What are they? Like everything kind of seems mosaic. There's also this mandala, like you said, mandala aspect to it. It's unbelievable. I'm just really, really impressed. And I mean, at a loss for words pretty much with this.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not like there's detail in the shapes, but the colors are distinct from themselves. It's not like there's this intricate depth, but there is at the same time. It's so interesting. His use of colors and shapes and movement is so beautiful. I'm also highly impressed, and I just this is why including a visual representation of your unconscious is so important, because there's so much packed within this,
Mhm.
things we won't even know because he's dead. And it's so funny
I'm
because when you were talking about it right before I just started talking again, uh the thought came to my head was, oh well, maybe we should do a seance and conjure up Carl Jung and then do an
yeah,
interview seance live. Like,
right. We should do a live. One of us will go to the other's house and we'll do a whole thing. Do when the veil is thin. I mean, that would be a really good,
it would definitely be something, I'll tell you
right?
that.
I know. Yeah. Hopefully we get Carl Jung and not an impersonator.
Yeah, not some
But
rando.
that would be oof. That would be a story to tell for sure. But yeah, so I mean, this is really incredible. Now we're gonna kind of same on topic, but we're gonna share our own art pieces. And so,
Absolutely.
Alexis, I believe your art is next. So I'm just gonna keep going through. Are you ready? Is
Absolutely.
that okay?
Sure. So I included different levels of completion when it comes to my artwork, digital, scribble, like, sketches, some painting, to kind of give a variety of how I personally integrate artwork and my dream work together. So this is a dream image that I had, I want to say in 2024. And there was some kind of dispute with the family and other dream people within the household that I was in. And I walked outside to get air, and this is what I saw. And it impacted me so deeply at the time for a variety of different reasons. But even just looking back at it now, it represents something different than how I translated it when I first saw it. So, just for some context, this is a Fisher Price toy that I used to play with when I was a kid. It was like a rocking chair type of toy. It was made entirely out of plastic. It was huge. It was just giant fish. You can look it up on eBay. It'll come up.
Yeah.
They no longer make it, so it's unless you get it used, you're probably not going to get it. It was a lot of fun, and it was something that stuck out in my childhood that was one of my favorites when I was really little. And for a variety of reasons, I think that the sensory of rocking is just very good for me. And also the texture, like, because it wasn't a smooth plastic, it was almost like a little gritty and or not gritty, but just a little more textured. Um, and this scene where I walk outside in this childhood toy that I imagine has been donated or thrown away at least 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I'll give myself a little bit of grace. Um, but walking out and having this apocalyptic, I mean, fire, the entire landscape was on fire. There was smoke everywhere, making it hard to breathe. There was meteors coming down from the sky. It was so smoky and cloudy. But then within my vision, right in front of me, is something that brought me so much joy. And when I first saw this and I first interpreted it, I saw it as a death of my childhood. Like, I think the death of our childhood is something that, because we're not educated on it, we don't really understand that the process between 9, 10 years old to like 2025. I would just stop it at 20 really for that. But like, you're really going through this transition of an aspect of your life dying. Your teenhood is you transitioning out of childhood into adulthood, and in a sense you are dying. So when I first experienced this dream, that's how I took it. But now that I'm looking at it now and I'm really reflecting, to me, I see an aspect of myself that brought me joy in a scenario where it feels like everything is falling apart. So to me, it almost was like a good omen, or you know, some kind of symbol to help me continue moving forward on my path, holding on to joy and not letting everything that's unstable hold me back from growth and happiness.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from it, was what came to mind after you sharing, just like even getting more into the detail of your experience with this toy, like the texture of it and how it was like soothing and comforting. And that's what I felt like. It was like safety, like it felt like safety and security. So a similar type vibe, like in the midst of chaos, like, you are safe, like you are protected. Um, and I love that. Like you are, and it's like also you're able, like you're entitled to that. Like don't feel away, don't feel bad that you are, you know, that you can have this joyful moment when it seems like the world is a dumpster fire. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And just because we've transitioned from childhood doesn't mean we can't be connected to our inner child
Mm.
and keep that part of ourselves alive in spirit. So I just, looking back at this, it might feel very grim, but to me, it's such a wonderful, like, I don't know, it's just so interesting the way our unconscious delivers messages.
Mm. Okay.
So these two are just little sketches. And again, you can see like they're not really completed. They're not that great. They're not really much, but it's just something to put down on paper to translate what I'm seeing in my unconscious down on paper. The one from July 30th, that was just a dream about going to get, you know, cake and cupcakes and pastries from this bakery for a party that I was going to have. It was very brief. Most of my experience was spent in this cafe. The person felt very familiar, but also like not familiar at all. They knew people that I was friends with and like gave me the pastries discounted or for free because they knew one of my friends and like they were, I don't know, they had a good impression. And it was just kind of like a representation of me being in this, you know, cafe and how it was laid out. And then the other one we have here was a little more, that wasn't the one to the right is a little more of a one long dream and two an older dream. And, you know, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but basically I had lost my car and I was walking up and down the streets at night looking for my car. And I came across this woman and there was this fire in a garbage can behind her on the sidewalk. Behind her was this like garage and like basically junkyard. And right behind her was my clothes. Now, if you know me or, you know, whether you know me or not, but I have not had a clean car. I just I can't, if I can keep my house clean, that's great. That's only thing I can keep clean. I can't keep my car clean. And clothes, I've had bags of clothes in my car for years. And they're different bags. I'll get rid of them and then just add a new one, but there's always clothes in my car. So she basically had taken all my clothes out of the car that was being dismantled and taken apart. So by the time I actually got to this area, she was selling my clothes on the sidewalk, just in a pile. And my car was on like it was just a shell of a car. And that was the end of this dream. And it was very anxiety driven. And the woman didn't seem right. There was something off about her, just the way she was looking, the way she wasn't all there, but she was also kind of malicious. And it was just, this is what I saw within my dream space. And I just had to like sketch it out real quick when I woke up so I didn't lose the image. Of course, the image isn't lost, but sometimes some dreams just really stick out more than others when it comes to translating them visually. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting too because the image on the left, the dream and the bakery, like everything's so neat and nice, and like you can get just looking at these in comparison, which we weren't even gonna do. Like that's why I don't. That's not why we have them together, but just to save space.
sure.
But looking at them together, it's like one is very like organized and neat, and it's like this is an experience of me in a bakery. And what was your emotion in the dream? Do you
Just
remember?
kind of like
Time.
so I know I was conscious and I was just kind of taking in the experience. I know that it was cold in there. It was very whitewashed, like everything was light toned, but the lights were dim in the bakery. And like towards the back, you know, you couldn't see a whole lot of what was going on. There's a package behind the person that's like
Yeah.
nicely wrapped up that they like really put a lot of effort and like touch into to make it nice for when I picked it up. And you know, the emotions were kind of neutral. You know, it wasn't particularly a happy experience. It was just I was observing and experiencing as I was going.
Yeah. But the picture on the right, I mean, just with the lines, like how you it almost seems like not the scribble method, but you know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
like fading. It's just you can feel the energy between the like of the actual drawings, just the space that you're in, like even like the scribbles of her face, like the lines going back and forth over her face.
Oh yeah, and well, and
Yeah.
if you look at the way that the like picture is set up, the fire in the trash can is behind her. So what's behind her is being lit up, but what's in front of her is dark from the night.
Yeah.
So, which is an interesting aspect too of the way that your unconscious delivers these messages.
Mm-hmm. interesting. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one.
So this last one is it's unfinished, but I still wanted to share it because I thought it was an important aspect. This is one I had recently. And essentially the dream, because I had shared it before, the dream was me in this, you know, old mall shop that was now fitted for fortune telling. But, when I walk in, somebody's leaving the fortune teller. And what I see is this giant head that was inhuman. And this psychic or fortune teller, whatever she was, this being looked directly into my soul, and like I knew that I had to see her and get a reading and learn more and explore more. But the entire dream, I was aware that I had to wake up in the real, like in the waking space. I was aware that I was near the end of my ability to sleep. And so I was trying to get to her quickly, but there were all these roadblocks, people cutting me in line and taking my spot in line. And, the whole process of being with this being was, it took time. And so it was me just kind of like anxiously waiting to have interaction with this otherworldly person, whatever they are. And so this is what I saw when the last person had walked out, and I got a glimpse of what was behind the curtain. But it was unreachable. I never reached it.
Oh my gosh, Alexis, I cannot look her in the eye. Like I keep looking at it and like I look at her eyes and I can't look at her eyes for a long time. Like I feel like it's gonna trance me out. And
It was
also,
sorry,
what?
go ahead.
No, it's just that I'm a very strong visual person. Like I can remember the way things look. And so I've always been like unable to stare. Like if I'm watching a horror movie, I cannot look at the villain or the monster or whatever for a long period because it will enter my dreams.
Yeah.
So that's like while you were sitting here talking, I would look every so often and try to look at the floor or look around, and then I will look at it for a second, and then because it's wanting to make an imprint.
Yeah.
So that
And
feels really real.
it's so interesting because there was nothing that was indicating danger when she basically looked into my soul, and I was looking back, like it didn't indicate that I was in danger. It was curiosity. It was, here are maybe not answers to your questions, but guidance. And there just this aspect of like, I have to see this person. I have to, however we communicate, however we bond or whatever, like I have to have an interaction with this being. And so being on a time limit, because I was conscious that I was dreaming, and conscious that I had set my alarm a second time to wake up and get to work, and there was absolutely no way I could possibly sleep any longer. I it was anxiety driven, but it was still not a negative thing. Like there were things that happened that upset me, but it wasn't her presence, their presence, whatever, was not a negative experience. And to this day, I'm like, oh, I really, really wish that I had been able to sleep longer and had the interaction.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to my art friends, and please don't judge. Only one of them is one that I actually drew. So don't judge on that. But okay. So speaking of pastels, this is what came out. Okay. Basically, this dream was what I was referring to at the time because I was having a series of these dreams that were very like vivid, colorful, out in nature. And it just like the emotion behind the dream was just it was just joy and bliss. And so I was calling this series of dreams the new earth, or my new earth dreams. It felt like I was visiting these new earth places. And so this part of the dream, this is like all that I could really attempt to draw, and it's definitely doesn't do it any justice, but I'm gonna let it be. Basically, in the dream, I was in my house, and at some point, I needed to leave out. I wanted to leave out and go for a walk around the neighborhood, which is not uncommon in waking life. And so I go out, and when I go outside, there is in the distance, like in the background, there is basically mountains, right? And it kind of reminded me of when I lived in Boulder, and that's all you see. Like whenever you're out, like there, the backdrop, it almost looks fake. You're at the foothills basically of the Rocky Mountains, and it looks like a fake backdrop. But I mean, they're obviously actual like mountains, and they're not. They're just the foothills. They're not even like the big Rocky Mountains. But that's kind of the energy that I got. Except they were really big. They were snow capped. The sky was, it was almost like there was an aurora during the day, but it was like a purplish blue sky, but very vibrant. And it wasn't like stormy. I don't even know how to explain it. And so I was just walking, down this neighborhood, or in my neighborhood, and it didn't feel, it felt basically the main feeling, like I said, was joy and just bliss, and it felt otherworldly. Like I knew in the dream that I was somewhere else. I was very conscious, but it wasn't full on lucid, or at least I didn't have the desire to change anything, because this is literally heaven. Like I'm in my happy place. And the dream went on to do, other things, like other things happen as I was walking in the neighborhood. But overall, it was the type of dream that I really, the imagery, I just had to get it out of my space. And so this was me just playing with the colors. Like I said, it wasn't, I could barely even draw mountains. So this is when I started also very briefly experimenting with AI. And so AI can even do it any justice, but this was kind of what it was going for. At least the backdrop. That's what I wanted to focus on, like with the writing. And I think I did this through Canva. So this is through my graphic design website, and they have like, an AI beta engine. And so yeah, I don't know if you remember that I share this with you.
I do, and I remember the dream. And going back to the drawing you did, there's something really beautiful and light and wispy and otherworldly that I think your drawing does much nicer than what the AI creates. And I don't know if that's what your intention was and what it was feeling, but to me, it feels like all this color was there was a movement within it, and there's just like this otherworldly feeling. It wasn't just looking out at the landscape and seeing mountains. It was different. There was something so much more, so much larger than just what you would see on your average sunset. And I, as much as you may not feel like this is good, I think it represents that dream really well.
Yeah, no, now that I'm looking at it, it does have this wavy motion, and you're right, everything in the dream was really like grand. Like the feeling of it was grand. I remember as I was walking through the neighborhood, like the just the roads, or the pathway was almost kind of like hilly, or I felt that I
Mhm.
was almost like walking on my tiptoes. Like it just felt
Yes.
so light, and it felt like, yeah, it did feel kind of wavy. So that's
Well,
interesting. I didn't even realize that came out in the
and
drawing.
that's why the way that you interpret your art, even if you don't feel like you're good, it brings out more of what you actually experience than like what the AI created. Because if I'm being totally honest, the AI just, it does just kind of feel like you're like average, sunset in a mountainous area. There's not that light, airy, wispy feel. There's not really an otherworldly feeling, and it may not be as technical, but it still represents the dream a little bit better than what the computer created, in my opinion.
No, you're right. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm feeling more confident in this. So I'm definitely going to do it more. So as I have begun to, I'm going to be honest, I've been sharing my dreams with ChatGPT out of curiosity. And it also provides me with some nice journaling prompts to like peel back the layers for myself. And naturally, if you've used ChatGPT, you know that they always produce prompts, right? And
Right.
so the way that ChatGPT, you know, I guess the way I programmed it through my interactions, it asked me, "Oh, do you want an oracle card to you know, to go with this dream?" And I was like, "Sure." I was curious. And so that's been something I've been doing. If I have like a really profound dream, I'll plug it into ChatGPT and have it produce an oracle card. Now, again, same thing with this one. You have to like, or if you're using AI, one thing that I've learned is that you have to surrender in it looking anything like what's in your mind. You
Mm-hmm.
have to just accept that you're going to get what you're going to get. Trust me, these women are supposed to be me. They don't, you know, I've even given Chat GPT a picture of me. They don't look anything like me. This doesn't look well, they don't have a picture of my daughter, so that's fine. But um still, it's, I literally have tried to modify things, and at this point I'm like, you know what, I'm okay with it. Like, if I, yeah. So with that said, I've been pretty happy with what they produce. This one in the middle specifically, I shared a dream, I believe on our last dark moon dream reflections, about the high priestess bird that was in my dream, that it was really, really big. It was dressed in um this black gown, right? This black priestess gown. I had told my daughter, I was like, "Hey, look at it." I mentioned the exotic birds. So this is not really, the setup is not really what I envisioned, but it's doing a good job of like bringing that um the dream out of me again. Like, the bird was not a white bird, it was more of like a peacock. It was very slender,
Mm-hmm.
very colorful. I tried to remedy that, but it just wasn't working right. So again, you know, I just need to do my own art, right?
It,
So
it's a very like I like the AI more now than when you used it on Canva back when you did that.
yeah.
But again, like I completely agree. Like there's different aspects of it that it just is like refusing to incorporate.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think the dream that I had, that I just showed the artwork from, that was sometime last year. Um, and this all is from like the past, like I think actually from last month, because that's when I kind of started doing this. And
Yeah.
so, um, this one here, this one's so cute. I love this. It definitely doesn't look like what I saw. But basically the dream was about like, or the main part that was kind of important, was there was a cat in the dream, and oh my gosh, the cat was so cute, and I was cuddling with the cat or just kind of playing with it. And I noticed that the cat had a sock on, like had socks on, and I was like, the hell, like this is weird. And so I was trying to take the sock off of the cat, and the cat wouldn't let, like it kind of like moved away, like, you know how cats, like if you try to grab their paw, like they're like rip it away. So it kind of
Yep.
did that, and then it started grooming itself. Like, it was very content with having the socks on. And then when I zoomed in, like in the dream, I zoomed in on the sock, there was basically the angel of death. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the tarot card, but it made me think of the tarot card. And I think I put that into Chat GPT, and they put like the death tarot card, but it was definitely like the skeleton angel of death. Um, and so that was really interesting. But I like this picture. So I'm like, okay, I'm okay with it.
Right.
So that was cute. Dude, I told you about that dream, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then this one, this was like one of my favorite dreams. Recently, I had a dream that basically somebody had told me that if you open up a tube of red lipstick, it attracts crows or ravens. I think it was, no, maybe, no, it was crows. And so I did that in the dream. Like I didn't hear that in waking life. This all came through the dream. But
Right.
I was sitting outside out front of my house in the front yard. the yard was really big and it was distant. So that feels kind of accurate to the picture here. Like way bigger than my front yard here. And I did it, and like I opened up the lipstick, and then there was like a couple, and then next thing you know, there was like a whole like triple murder of freaking crows. Like it was crazy. And then I went inside, and they like some of them, like a big group of them came inside. And like the dream though was very, it felt very profound. It felt very archetypal. And that's why I only choose the dreams that have been really profound to see what Chat GPT will derive and create from it. And it's been like a cool little library. Again, like I said, I haven't been really happy like 100% with the dreams, but I had to surrender that, right? But yeah, I think they did a pretty good job.
I loved all of these dreams, and the like I won't go too much into it right now, but there's like you've shared a lot of these dreams on the previous chats, and there's just so much depth. Like there's such I completely understand why they're so profound, because even experiencing just hearing the dream and seeing like a vague visualization of what it was like th- there's so much depth and beauty to it. And oh god, I loved these dreams so much when you shared them.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're intimidated with drawing, you can start by using AI. And I feel that over time, that might inspire you to, do your own, because, like I said, it definitely doesn't do it any justice. But this is helpful for me. This definitely inspired me. And like I said, I just started doing this maybe like a month or so ago. And then naturally, through the work that Alexis is doing in our own personal practice, and what we're doing through Dreamigos, like art, visual dream journals have come up. And then we decided to have this chat. And now, I'm at the point where maybe I'm going to I feel inspired to take a class, like an art class. Did I do it in high school or college? I did in some form of school, and it was okay. I think it would be more fun now because I'm still gonna be in my head about it, but not as much. So I feel really inspired with this conversation. Even now, I'm thinking that I want to at least start to just get out my pastels and do like just color, like just doing
Absolutely.
of how I feel,
Absolutely.
and that'll take a lot of the pressure off. So yeah, I'm gonna try that out.
I am 100% down for that. And, as we're sitting here, I have dreams coming up that I've had, and me like as inspiration for new pieces, because, there is so much depth to our dream space, and having a visual, being able to see it, it just takes you down a different path. And just for any of you guys who feel like, you are uncomfortable with doing art and you'd like to learn, there are a ton of free resources on YouTube. Like you can look up, you know,
Yeah,
how to create art with acrylics, how to draw bodies, how to draw birds, how to do anything. Anything you want to learn how to do, you can get for free on YouTube.
that's very true. I didn't even think about that, to be honest. I can start, yeah, because I love how they start with just like the basic shapes. Like I remember that in art class, but it seemed very like not necessarily abstract, but it was just very, it just was overwhelming to, even when I process like, okay, how do I go from this shape to like a hand or to like eyes, or so I don't know. Again, it's like Urania, get out of your head and just try, just do it.
Yeah. You just have to let yourself do it. I mean, think about it like this. If you go to the Museum of Modern Art or the Met, there's so many different artists where there's incredible layered deep depth pieces of art where like you can't even really deconstruct the piece because it's just so incredible and almost like otherworldly. But then there's artists who are hugely famous, and their work isn't, not that it's not good, but it's not as complex.
Yeah, that's true.
There's such a huge range, and you have to give yourself reverence and grace and patience. What you're creating is out of nothing. You're creating nothing. Like you're creating something out of nothing, out of thin air. And that is the most beautiful aspect of it. It doesn't have to be good. You did it.
You know what's interesting is that I've always that's kind of been a struggle for me is to draw it from the mind to paper, like what I envision or even yeah, like what I want to draw. Like if I know something and even like doing with AI, if I was to or just like a graphic, design app, if I was to try to even express, like tell it, and maybe it's hard for me to put it into words in this case, but trying to express what I see or what I feel, it's hard. Like I just was playing around. I didn't know on ChatGPT they have like a separate like AI creative art thing. I don't remember the name of it, but anyways, I was like, oh, I didn't know they had this, and so I was like, let me see how this works. And I've always had a vision of my goddess temple and like what I would be doing in that. And so I was like, okay, let me get a scene from this. But to like put it into words is so hard for me to describe it to like AI. And what they produce, I was like, no. I like because I want it to look like me, or it doesn't have to look 100%, but I'm like, this is and every time I correct it, it just gets worse. And so I was like, but then when I try to sit and just start to draw something, it's really hard for me to like draw it out. But if I'm looking at a picture, I can easily draw it from the picture from what I'm already seeing. But for me to just like completely draw it out of my mind and do it myself, it's like it's so hard.
You know, one of the things that's very underrated in the learning process of art is tracing.
Mm,
And if especially the dreams where you're involved and you want to see that within like a creative process, like, a drawing or a sketch or a painting or pastels or whatever, I highly recommend, printing out pictures of yourself, printing out,
yeah,
pictures of your cat. Your cat's been in your dreams a ton of times, maybe your house, and getting printer paper because it's light and just tracing those things because it connects your brain and your hands and everything, and you start to learn how to do it. Even if it feels inauthentic, that's what you're experiencing, your house, so you can use your own house as a template. You're experiencing
such a
yourself, your
good
cat. Like there's so many ways to go about learning that make it a little less complicated and a little more enjoyable, because even, I've been doing art since I can remember, and the learning process can be incredibly difficult, and you can be really hard on yourself
yeah.
and give up easily. And I think that utilizing certain tools like tracing is, I mean, and you can trace on paper, or, if you have an iPad, you can, you know, get a cheap stylus and use a like an app like Procreate and trace digital photos, or, go from
Yeah, because
there.
I do have an Apple Pencil, and so if I could just pry the iPad away from my child, because it was ours to share, but it turned into just hers. But nonetheless, yeah, we're gonna have to do a part two on this for sure, and check in with where I'm at on this. But I'm really inspired to like do the colors with the emotions and just do an abstract thing, and then I know that'll get me really excited to start learning more. So thank you so much. This was like medicine for me. I love it.
I just feel so connected and inspired, and I'm so excited to see, our journey from here on out and how we include that in our dream space, our dream work and our dream journals. And I am so excited to even think about having an updated episode where we kind of see where how far we've gone with it. Because I mean, I'm already getting the inspiration to do collage and to do other outlets, more abstract stuff, maybe different styles, more shapes, and maybe less like it being perfect and for myself, and more like loose. So I'm really excited. This was such a healing episode for myself too, because the connection with art and dreams is it's basically me. Like that's
Yeah,
just
that is
basically me.
so you.
And talking to you about it and sharing this with, our listeners is just it's a joy and a privilege, and I'm forever grateful for this podcast.
Awesome. Cool. Well, friends, I think we covered what we desired tonight. And so don't forget to like this episode. I always forget to say, don't forget to like the episode, follow, subscribe, do the thing, you know what to do. And also, next week we will be back with Dark Moon Dream Reflection. So maybe we'll have a little bit more to share of what we've been doing as far as the art, the visual journaling. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Next.
I'm I'm I think I'm good on closing up this episode for sure. You know, just remember it doesn't have to be a uncomfortable, maddening process.
Yeah,
Being creative with your dream space.
that's true.
So if it doesn't feel good for you, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But there are a variety of different ways you can manifest these dreams into
Dance
physical
it
form.
out.
Dance it
Dance it
out,
out.
sing
Yeah.
it, you
Sing
know,
it.
music
Music
or
is a good one, actually.
music is a
That would be a
great
good one.
one.
Ooh, yeah.
Just
Have a
whatever
playlist.
comes. Yeah, make a playlist. Make a playlist on your dreams.
Oh,
That is
we have to do that.
beautiful.
There's so many things that we
There's
have.
so many outlets. Take advantage of what you're able to,
Yeah.
include, because it's just going to help you down the line.
Awesome. Well, I'm really inspired. I'm inspired to dream tonight. I hope you all are too. So we will see you next week and we'll be sharing our reflections on the dream space. And so until then, sweet
Sweet
dreams.
dreams.